lights flicker, shadows get hazardous. Stories unfold with a mind of hazardous. Dice on the table, no script, no master list. Building whole worlds in a one-night catalyst. From alleyways dark to the games that we gather in. Pushing the limbs, no prep, just imagine it. Roll of a d6, the stakes get dramatic quick. Truth in the shadows, the system miraculous. It's the real story, yeah, we're playing it like Brian Hazzard in the house. Bring the worlds to life, no GM, just a spark and a roll of the dice. And alleys dark where the wrong meets the right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We have with us Brian Hazzard. Brian Hazzard is the inventor of One Night Worlds, published by Wandering Pine Press. Sorry, I'm stepping on my words. That wonderful AI intro tripped me up a little bit. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you for having me. That was a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever seen myself look that cool.
That's what we do here. We really like to show off our guests. Thanks. Josh puts a lot of work into those intros, and everybody but one person so far has loved them. So I'm glad we're still hitting that streak. So if anybody wants to know which one he doesn't like, you got to watch your own episodes and go back. I'm not telling you, but it's not who you think. So, hey, Brian, welcome to the show. The reason I wanted you on is because you've done something that I think is unique. I'm a old school role-playing game person. My sister, Kim, got me role-playing when I was a kid. And it was just probably Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s. And it's something I fell in love with. I understand why it's awesome. And what we're going to get into here is what you're doing different. And let's just start with that, and then we'll go back to how you got here. So what's different, or what's your angle on role-playing games?
Well, glad you asked. I like the story side. I like doing silly voices. I like more of the narrative. I've never been big on the crunch factor. Those things can be fun. I like the tactical things. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy them. But the times that I have the most fun is when I'm just sort of like rolling off the cuff with other players. So a couple of the big factors that kind of lean into that in the games that I design is, one, I tend to design for no GM. Part of that is because without that, I tend to be the forever GM, and I want to be.
Right. If you do it once, you're doing it forever.
Exactly. I want to be part of the story, in a character, embodying a character, so I can, put on my voice and that sort of thing. And another thing is that I have never been big on having to study a setting before I can play. I've looked at, big RPGs, and I've found myself get overwhelmed feeling like I have to be like a history buff for that RPG, because I don't want to be an imposter or like a fraud, I'm the GM and yet I'm the least knowledgeable person about the setting. Right. And it doesn't work unless you study. And frankly, with two kids, and up until recently a full-time job, we'll get into that, I think.
That's next.
I just never had time for that. I loved reading those books, but ultimately the games rarely ever made it to the table. So because of that, I go for zero prep design, where the setting, you get just sort of little teasers of the setting, but the setting reveals itself, or in a way you kind of create it yourself through character creation and during scenes and that sort of thing. So you may hear that sometimes called an anti-canon philosophy for games. Okay. Where I'll present a setting and I have some backstory stuff in mind, but really I focus, the idea is that the player overrides all of that. Whatever happens at the table, that's canon, right? And also, well, I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah. So those are two big things: zero prep and GM-less. Yeah.
And quickly, I think that was the other thing. Like you're 6. Yeah, you currently have 4 games, and I think like the thing that I also found appealing was I want to play, but I can't always like getting a group of my friends together at this age, all together on every Thursday night or every night. A regular thing is very hard, and then somebody will move or somebody something happens, and then your campaign. Like I like the idea of something can happen in a night or two.
Exactly.
I think that's why card games work so well for a lot of people, because there's no commitment beyond the night.
Right. So, you can play one of these games easily within an hour, and you won't have a full story arc come out of that, right? But you will be able to embody a character for an hour and get to like a cool cliffhanger. That's what I found. When you play for an hour, you usually get to like, oh, this feels like a great place to stop because it's a cool cliffhanger. Yeah. We may never pick up the game again, but nonetheless, it was satisfying, right?
Yeah, and that worked in well with my old game nights, because that was the time between we started playing, somebody ordered a pizza, the pizza shows, then we're done playing. Mm-hmm. Like we would come back. The thought was we're coming back to play, but we didn't. Right. The other thing, and sorry to interrupt you here, but like the other thing that I thought that this would be great for is to introduce new role players to what role playing is. There's not a lot of commitment here. They don't have to memorize these rules and then that, or even getting in the rules explanation. You're gonna have 13 dice, and these 2 are for this, and only use the triangle one for this time. When I say, we'll tell you, don't worry. And like you're basically being a puppet for 2 games before you get your feet under you. I like the fact that yours is like, this is going to be role playing. Here you go. This is your name. Go.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the 4 games. There are 6 games total that are in this sort of One Night Worlds collection, the original collection. And all of them are, well, actually that's not true. 4 of them are 1 page front and back. The other 2, the reason they ended up dropped from the collection when I moved into the new format for them, is they I kind of got designer brain on them and expanded them. I couldn't help myself. I expanded them beyond the 1 page format. Creep. Yeah, exactly. Feature creep. You'd think I'd know better because I've been a product manager for over 15 years, but nonetheless, it's
there we go with our segue. Thank you very much. You've done this before, I could tell. So before you started Wandering Pine Press, which I said correctly now that I've settled into it, who were you? Who did you start your office career as, and where were you at the end? And you don't have to tell me what happened, but what happened?
No, I don't mind going into that either. So I started out my career in software development. And, I'll try to keep this brief, but I will give a couple of little pastiches, vignettes, whatever. So my very first job out of college was for a company that when you sign the agreement, it's almost like the military. You don't know where you're going to be deployed. And my recruiter, after I signed the agreement, a few months go by, I was still in college at the time. And she calls me to let me know like where I've been deployed, and it was Helena, Montana. Now Montana is a really cool place, but Helena has this interesting facet to it, at least to my experience when I was there, which is that as soon as everybody graduates high school, they get the heck out of there, and then they come back when they turn like 30 or something. Well, here I was like 22, 23. I don't know how old I was, and there's just nobody my age. So I hated it. Anyway, the reason I tell you all that is that I've always been somebody who has been like really passionate about whatever it is that I'm doing. And at the time it was software development. In the company I worked for, there was nobody sort of to be friends with outside of the company. And within the company, nobody seemed particularly interested in software development. So I had to get the heck out of there. It was just sort of a day job for people, right? Anyway, I moved on from there, and I was a software developer for a few more years. I found a great company that I worked with for a number of years, where I was a software developer at first. But what I found was that I didn't really like just making the sausage, so to speak. I wanted to know why those particular ingredients were going into the sausage and have a say in what ingredients were going into the sausage.
Right.
And so that's what led me into product management. And for anybody who's not familiar with the term product manager in technology companies, what a product manager does is a little bit of everything. They're kind of the connective tissue in one of those companies. Generally speaking, they need to be aware of the market and what customers, what problems the target customer has, and how they're currently solving those problems, and how they're currently, failing to solve those problems, and take all of that information in, and also understand technologically what's possible,
and how
work,
fast.
Yeah, exactly, and work closely with engineers to sort of negotiate, priorities and that sort of thing.
And use the word
ultimately,
negotiate.
Exactly. Ultimately create a product with a team of people and get it shipped. And getting it shipped is the key thing there. Like one of my mottos that I'm like relearning as a game designer is done is better than perfect, right? So yeah.
That's a very interesting lesson that you learn quickly in the business world. I've known a lot of software engineers, software devs, coders, hackers. I myself typed in programs from magazines on my Commodore 64 when I was a kid, but
Nice.
never went into that field. So I have one question for you. You're a programmer, as I just like to lump everybody together. You made a game that's on paper.
Yes. It's a funny thing. When you work all day with computers for decades, you start to lose love for the computers. I don't know. So like, I still, to this day, I'm a technologist. Absolutely. Like any kind of cool technology trend, I can't help myself, but dive into it. But mostly what I really like is to understand how things work and get under the hood of those things. And, so another little tangent for a moment. I recently got interested in magic, like magic tricks, right? And so, I've got right here, I've got a deck of cards. I don't plan to do a magic trick. Please don't ask me to do a magic trick. But yeah, I always have a deck of cards and coins and things like that near me. Why do I bring this up? Within a year of getting into magic as a hobby, I now have a library of over 100 magic books. I couldn't help myself. And yes, there's a number of those that I haven't read because, oh God, I've got an addiction or something like that. But I spent countless hours just diving in and understanding how magic works and why it works and the theory behind it and all that kind of thing. So bringing it to RPGs, I've played a number of games, but I have read an innumerable number of games to understand what makes them tick. And that just fascinated me. So video games are cool. Why didn't I make a video game? Because I was kind of tired of computers and screens, and also stories. I've always been a storyteller, and RPGs, like video game RPGs, are a very different animal than tabletop RPGs. And tabletop RPGs to me are story engines in such a fascinating way, and the millions of approaches that people have taken to how to generate story, it just sort of like it gets my engine going.
I like it. I've never seen somebody who could program well, and I'm not saying you can't, who could program, just not instantly go to, I'm going to make this a program. It'll be a text adventure if it has to be. Yeah. But like, I appreciate the fact you left your medium. You also left your comfort zone to do this full time with your wife. And that's something, before we play, which will be next, I promise everybody we're going to play next. First off, I have a challenge for you before I forget.
Sure.
Your game would be great by a campfire if there was a way to get like either just a scan on a phone or whatever. I'd say you make like a slightly longer form version of it, Campfire Tales. There's kind of horror stories around the campfire that you role play. I would play that, so I'm challenging you because I want to see it. Anyway,
I do. By the way, I do have a haunted house game, so I love the idea. I could certainly see myself going in that direction. I love horror stories. Unfortunately, my wife and kids absolutely despise horror, so we'll see.
Hey, we got some yeses there. Oh, that's you guys. The question I have, because your wife, and a great segue, you have you can always go back to the corporate world, right? It's not saying like you left that forever if you have to, but you left a safe corporate world, a life you had built with 2 children, young children, to start a company, to get into a market that is tough, honestly, to get into. But you're a product manager. You do your research. I know you do your research, and you're like, how did this conversation go? Did it happen over a long period of time, or was it I came home from work, honey, I'm done? How did this happen, and how quickly was she on board?
So the very first thing that happened was several years ago, before I had any thought that I might leave the corporate world, which was that I just got obsessed with the hobby, and in particular micro games, little tiny RPGs. I was participating in game jams and creating a bunch of little games, and selling them for $1, $2 a pop type of thing. Not a lot of sales or anything like that. But I built up a little collection of these and picked my favorites, and decided to do a Kickstarter and try my hand there, doing like publishing the Kickstarter. I knew I didn't want to get into a mess of like physical publishing or anything like that, because I still had a full-time job. So I did a digital only thing. But when I do something, I can't help but like really try to do it. So I spent the time building up a podcasting audience. I've spent the time just developing audience in a few different ways, and then launched the campaign and did reasonably well. I'm not going to say that like I made the earth shake or anything like that, but I had over 1,000 backers, which for a little indie game is pretty good. Several games is pretty good. And that was the first sort of like, maybe there's something here, but I went back to my day job, and in fact, hit some trouble fulfilling on that Kickstarter campaign. Like I intended to deliver this within, 3 to 6 months. And years later, we can talk about this briefly, but years later, I'm still working on fulfilling that initial campaign. And I'll come back to that, because I've come up, speaking of product manager, I've come up with an interesting approach to how I'm doing that. The reason that happened was that whole scope creep thing, right back to full circle to the scope creep. I had some cool ideas, so I had, the games were more or less done. The 1-pager games were more or less done. But I had some cool ideas for how I would want to expand these into a quote unquote campaign edition. Right. And on paper, they felt, oh, this is easy. I can do this. No big deal. I was excited because we were like mid campaign with this. I didn't do the math. And it turns out that combinatorial math is a real bitch. Oh, sorry.
We can swear here. We can swear here.
So just to give you an example, that I'm currently working on fulfilling the first of 4 of these games in campaign edition, and I'm very close to actually like shipping it now. What started as a 1-page game is now in a raw format without the art in it is over 90 pages. So like it's a book,
It's a full manual size. Yeah.
Yeah. And also now, like, so the book beta version is done. I'm sending it out to beta readers now who are giving me feedback and that sort of thing. And of course, continuous play testing and all that kind of thing. But also at least one drawing a night right now to create art for it. And I need to have like lots of art to make
Yeah.
this, feel like a compelling product and not just like a fever dream or something like that. Coming real quick, if it's okay, I'd like
But
to
you're
talk
doing
a
it
little bit.
right. I think that speaks a lot to fulfilling that promise. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
could dump something out and put something in people's hands, but it's going to be right. I love
Right.
that attitude. I think the campaigns I've backed Kickstarter wise, I've always appreciated doing it right rather than just put something in my hands.
Yep.
So yeah, I've weighted myself, and I seems like you built a community too who gets it.
Yeah, and there was, speaking of doing it right, like back at the time when I initially did that Kickstarter campaign, like AI wasn't a thing, right? So in theory, I could just let me generate a bunch of AI art and be done with it, right? But the thing is, people, first of all, the community of indie RPG players tends to be very skeptical of AI. So that's one thing. But also that's not what they bought. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm hand drawing all of the art. Now, it won't be as pretty as if I just AI generated it, frankly, but it will be me, and you're getting something that a creator created. And not just me, by the way. My wife is also she hasn't really participated so much in the writing of the book, but though she's doing a lot of the editing, but she's doing a lot of the artwork as well. So
nice. Yeah, and I think people pay for the human. The simple of it is, yes, AI can do some beautiful things, and we use it. Obviously, we used it for our intro, but there's also the human element. There's something you put the time into this. That's what they're paying for. If anybody else can go, I want to see a dragon standing on a pile of gold, and AI could draw it. Like, you doing it, your vision is what people pay for. That's why an artist exists. And I think we're going to find more and more that if you can only do stuff as well as AI, or as impersonal or soulless as AI, then you're going to be struggling for work. But the people that have a soul and they're putting things into it, I think we're going to see that stand out. And unfortunately, we're also going to see people lie and abuse it.
You discover things about yourself too. Like, frankly, I didn't know that I could draw, and I'm not like obviously Rembrandt or anything like that, but and the idea of drawing figures like characters, people, was always very scary to me. Now, frankly, I avoid drawing hands because they're like the bane of an amateur artist's existence. But I found that I can produce some character portraits that I'm pretty proud of. So yeah, and I wouldn't know that if I just clicked go on an AI generation tool. So
that's half the fun of what you do in creating, is you get to learn about yourself and what your limits are and how to improve. Like, every time I improve something I sucked at, it's always great to see, oh wow, reach another level. It's the same feeling of leveling up in a game, in a video game, when you do it in real life. Like, somebody who's learned how to play guitar knows what it's like to finally hit that chord after that chord right. Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.